allowed. We don't know how many that is or how many would convert to full-time rentals as opposed to selling, which I'll get to in a moment. We don't know, the people who've lived here and who live here for less than 6 months, that's still their full-time residence. So they could spend 5 months in Florida and rent those 5 months. It will not turn it into a full-term, into a long-term rental or affordable housing. So we don't know the conversion rate, which I know a number of you have been saying. We don't know how many year-round rentals. The median home price, when I Googled and got median home price, was $360,000. I think the Berkshire Regional, their housing study, it was a lot higher than that. But at $360,000, your mortgage and taxes are $2,000 a month. That's before repairs. It's before a profit. That will not be affordable housing. Like, none of the median homes will end up as affordable housing. If your goal, and again, your only stated goals are year-round housing and affordable housing, I would just be careful to make sure that this activity is meeting those goals. A more impactful way might be, like Jonathan was just suggesting, was to tax it and use that money to develop or subsidize housing. So that's all I want to say. And nobody disagrees with the goals. You just want to make sure your numbers back it up. We had no idea. There's some plus sides. The town, I believe, saw a 35% increase this quarter in the taxes from short-term rentals. That's money the town could use because it lowers people's taxes. So there's an upside to this. I know there's a downside to it, but we don't know what that is. And I think it's really important to know what that is and to know if it'll work. That's all. Thank you.
Any comments?
In terms of the goals, so, we're to restate or to clarify, to protect the long-term residential rental market, to support full-time residency, to discourage real estate speculation, to protect and maintain the residential character of existing neighborhoods, and to level the playing field for short-term rentals and other types of lodging. So those were kind of notes I had in terms of the goals, in addition to what
protecting the residential character of residential neighborhoods, I hadn't heard before. I'm sorry, but then we should probably also outlaw owner-occupied Airbnbs. But no, there's an awful lot of that in my neighborhood, and I see a lot of people walking around. I don't know, which personally I don't have a problem with, but again, I would make sure that the things you're proposing actually achieve the very worthy goals that you've got. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, there's really no way that we'll ever know.
Well, I mean, I think, we can always say we don't know. But I think it's, my opinion as municipal leaders that we need to work as hard as we can to enact something that will have an impact. So we don't know a lot of things, but I think that it's incumbent for us to try. So we're not always going to have the data exactly as it is, but I've listened to enough citizens saying that they can't get any housing, that they've moved out of Great Barrington for lack of housing or being priced out. So in my mind, we need to do something. It might not be the perfect solution. It might take years and years of an ongoing commitment on our part to adjust things, but I think we need to start.
I agree. I think we need to start as well and not just throw up our hands right now because we don't have all the information. But we do need to we have to do something.
Yeah, my point was that we'll never know what the impact of this let's say the proposal gets enacted, we'll probably never know what the impact will be either.
Well, I mean, we will, because we'll be able to see, how many houses come onto the market. We'll be able to see do a decrease in short-term rentals. We'll be able to see an increase in long-term rentals. So we'll be able to track it. I mean, I don't worry about that at all.
Okay, Ron, did you still want to speak? Okay. Go ahead.
Firstly, thank all of you for considering this. I've owned rental property in Great Barrington for over 2 decades now. Several of them are multifamilies. I've sold a few of them, bought others. And I haven't Airbnb'd any of them, although I've Airbnb'd in surrounding towns for 10, 15 years. And it's not just Airbnb. I mean, there are many other vehicles besides Airbnb. And Jonathan is right. If you prescribe Airbnb or X or Y platform, there are many, many other platforms. There was a time before the internet, and I was renting houses before the internet that way as well. So it's never going to be something that will be policed. You don't want to be policemen or women or police people, whatever the term would be. You want to have cooperation with your rental property owners. Regulation is not the way to do it. Great Barrington, even though right now I have 5 units of multi-families in Great Barrington is not particularly helpful or friendly or encouraging of multi-families. Jonathan, you'll remember when we renovated our last project in Great Barrington, and it was a great deal of difficulty to get it to remain a 2-family. And in fact, we were encouraged to turn it into a 1-family. And I don't hold anyone personally responsible for that. But there are a lot of ways that we could make multifamilies much more easy to own and operate and renovate. The real issue here, and it's not just in Great Barrington, but it's all throughout the United States, is how to do affordable housing. Where is there a pool of money available for people who want to renovate? There is a lot of, even still, rundown housing stock in Great Barrington. That would be where I would look first. Regulating Airbnb is not going to do it. People are not going to suddenly convert Airbnbs into multi-families. It's a very tiny stick and carrot to wave. People are investing, their life savings in houses, and to tell them how to operate them is not going to make any impact. My suggestion would be, let's look at the housing stock that needs help and figure out how to help it. I mean, there is community development money available. There is, I forget, because I'm on the spot, the name of the additional tax that we all pay that was just used to renovate, for instance, the church on Main Street.
CPA.
Thank you, the CPA. Why not access some funds like that, block grants, and so on? Airbnb is not going to suddenly people are not going to suddenly convert Airbnbs into multifamilies. It's a business for me. And I also say this to my tenants, I tell them the amount of return I expect after expenses and taxes, and it is quite reasonable. It is not like there are not investors rushing into some gold mine in real estate. It's a very, very incremental way to get a return on money and on investment. And if you think that regulating Airbnbs is going to suddenly create this pool of housing, I'm afraid you're mistaken. Sorry. And so that's really all I will say at this time, but I will follow up with all of you in writing. And I know that's probably not something that you can comment on together or however that works. But anyway, I will follow up with you in writing because I'm not too articulate, but thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
I had something to respond to that.
Sure.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate hearing different perspectives. So I see this as a multi-pronged effort that, we're not just relying on this because, this is one piece of addressing the issue of shortage of housing, of both market rate and affordable housing. So I see this as one step, a crucial step in my opinion. But I do believe that we need to take other steps, such as you mentioned, bringing blighted properties up to code and selling them affordable, converting vacant properties into homes, building new affordable housing, and so forth. So I see it as really a multi-pronged effort, and regulating short-term rentals is one part of that effort. So.
All right, I got a question here. So let's see. So we've got this idea that that we limit any short-term rental activity to a primary resident. We've talked a little bit about enforcement. We haven't talked about code compliance or a registry, right? So there has to be some kind of way. If we talk about the registry, there has to be some kind of way. I guess this tied into enforcement, that we get people to register their business activities in town. So does anybody have any idea how that is accomplished? I will mention that there's one program that I have come across it's in Williamstown, and they have a rental inspection program. And they seem to have great success with their rental inspection program. It works somewhat like this. Don't take it as the actual way that it works, but they get people who rent out their homes, whether it's long-term or short-term, to come in, have their homes inspected. I believe it's on a 2-year basis. They pay a fee, they get a license to operate. And people in Williamstown that I've spoken to say that they've had great success with that program. Any other thoughts on a registry, how we get people to sign up?
Yeah. Does anyone else want to go? I don't want to be taking the whole thing. So some of the thoughts I had was that, if you had these two tiers, so let's say you had 2 short-term rental licenses, you had a short-term primary rental license that you were required to get, which came with a fee. Then there was a short-term non-primary rental license. So there's different fees that you would collect. It's not necessarily to make money. It's to really self-fund the program. And what that would come with is establishing a short-term rental registration program that would allow for public safety personnel to be familiar with the location of a short-term rental, to provide a local contact to respond to noise complaints, for example, and to provide information on record to town hall for all, tracking advertised rental properties. So I would suggest that, applicants for short-term rental uses must complete a registration application yearly with the town and comply. Now, I don't think, coming off what Chris said, I do think inspections are quite costly. So I don't foresee seeing a requirement for in-person inspections, but I do see that licenses must certify under penalty of perjury that their short-term rental has a functioning fire extinguisher and carbon monoxide detector, smoke alarm, and liability insurance to cover bodily and property damage. And that inspection could be required if the town thinks that there's a reason of concern that the licensed premises might not be compliant with fire, building, or zoning requirements. So that was some notes I had in terms of registration.
So that registration would be in addition to the state registration?
Yes. Yep. I'm not familiar with the state registration. Can you tell me what that entails, please?
They have to pay a fee, and they have to have $1 million of insurance. And I don't.
So I think, probably if you
It works through the Department of Revenue, right, Jonathan?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the Housing and Urban Development, I think.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're trying to necessarily make it, so unaffordable for residents. So I just think we're just trying to fund the fees involved with this program, such as what I mentioned. So, I guess if they can prove that they've registered with the state, perhaps they don't need to go to this lengths, but I think it's important for the town to keep track of these. I don't believe that there's a way to track individual registration on the state. I think you can get a roundabout numbers, but I seem to remember that there's no way to individually track short-term rentals. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember.
Well, as Chris said, the town meeting has to vote to accept this portion of the state law, is my understanding. And if the town does that, then the state registry will share information with the town. There are concerns about keeping things anonymous. If you look at the state registry, it'll tell you what street it's on. It won't tell you the address. It won't tell you the owner. It just tells you the street name.
There's certain data that we can access. There's confidential data that'll get us pretty granular. But again, people have to, that short-term renter has to register first, and then we have to request it. So it's,
Yeah, well, that's when it comes with, penalty. So if they fail to register, we would have to make something substantial enough that people that discourage the people from not registering.
I need to run soon. And if there's anything else you need me for, just let me know, but I'm going to give it another 5 or 10 minutes here.
Yeah, I thought that
I have a 7:30, so.
I thought that I would open up to some final comments, and I'll make a proposal for moving forward. So table's open for some final comments on today's discussion.
Yeah, if I could just say that if the subcommittee were to come forward with a plan, I would encourage you to make it a town bylaw, not a zoning reg. First of all, town bylaws only require a 50%, one more than 50%. It's a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote at town meeting, which could make it easier to pass. And secondly, more importantly, there is no grandfathering in town bylaws, whereas in zoning, there is grandfathering. So someone could make the case that, oh, I've been renting this as a short-term rental for the last 10 years. I should be grandfathered because it wasn't illegal. Now you're making it illegal. And so you're going to run into that problem with zoning, and you wouldn't if you made it a town reg.
That's a great point, Jonathan, and that's something I'd raised with Chris. So is that on point, Chris? Because that's the direction I was, would hope to go to.
Yeah, it's very true. We want to use the term vested rights or pre-existing non-conforming and not grandfathering, which has other connotations. But Jonathan is correct in principle. Yes.
So this could be a general ordinance, I guess. Am I phrasing that
Town
correctly?
bylaw.
It depends. I mean, it depends on what you want to do. You cannot regulate where a use occurs. That is definitely zoning. But a registration system would not be zoning. But if you're regulating what occurs on a piece of land and where it occurs, that's zoning.
Okay, so that was my understanding, is that had to be zoning if we were regulating use. So I guess you're saying the registration and enforcement would be, a general ordinance, and the rest of
But
it.
to be clear, Lee, it's not that we're regulating use. It would be zoning if you're telling people where they can do it in town. If
Okay.
you just say this is a law that the town has, that's
Okay.
one thing. If you say this is a town that the law has only in the residential districts, then that's zoning.
Okay, so,
Regulation of use is
Okay.
probably zoning, whether you're saying you can use it for 30 days or 60 days or geographically where you can use it. Oh, really?
Regulation of a
So,
land- Regulation of a land use is zoning. If you're just doing a registration and an inspection system, that is probably not
Huh.
zoning.
Yeah, that's.
okay, I
understand.
stand corrected.
I did my homework.
Any other thoughts?
So where do we go from here? Do you
All
want?
right, so this is what I was going to propose.
Yeah.
So I'm inclined to let the citizens decide. So I'm inclined to put something together to present to the select board that we can then take to town meeting. So given that you had all the great ideas, Lee, I was going to suggest that I could send you the editable copy of this bylaw that I've proposed. We can change the purpose, change whatever else you want. In particular, I think the purpose needs to be changed. I think your points for what the purpose of the thing is are good. I think we could change the part where it designates who can do what. Right now, it has 45 days for non-residents. That obviously would change. And then I think at our next meeting, we can review it and hopefully then be able to talk with the rest of your board to bring it to a joint meeting. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, so I'll do that. Without objection, I will skip over item number 5. We can save that for a time where we don't have an hour and a half discussion. Any citizens speak? Let me see if anybody has their hands up. Yes, Ed Abrams. You're allowed to talk, Ed.
Hello again.
Hey,
Just a question. You're just putting forth a registration? If you limit short-term rentals and you don't say where, have you just put hotels out of business?
we're not making any proposals right now, Ed.
Okay. And then the second thing is the town meeting, I think it was 2 years ago, rejected registration.
Yes.
That's just an FYI. All right.
We know that.
Thank you. Let's see if anybody else. I'm not going to pick you again, Ed, even though your hand is up. Seeing none, without objection, I will adjourn us at 7:07.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
joining.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.